With 132 million users and an unrivaled selection of sports trading cards and memorabilia, eBay is the home of collectibles. Premium trading card singles, live card breaks, unique game-used memorabilia, all the epic finds you need are right here on eBay. Collect with confidence by downloading the eBay app on the App Store or by going straight to ebay.com/theathletic. That's ebay.com/theathletic. Start building your collection today.
This episode is supported by Merrill. With a dedicated Merrill advisor, you get a personalized plan for your financial goals. And when plans change, Merrill's with you every step of the way. Go to ml.com/bullish to learn more. Merrill, a Bank of America company. What would you like the power to do? Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer. Registered investment advisor. Member SIPC.
This episode is brought to you by Merrill. We all have goals, and we all want to get to those goals, whether that's saving for a home renovation, that once-in-a-lifetime trip to your favourite Grand Prix, or even retirement. We all want a straightforward path to those goals, but the real world doesn't usually work that way. Merrill understands that. That's why with a dedicated Merrill advisor, you get a personalised plan and a clear path forward. And having the bull at your back helps your whole financial life move with you. So when your plans change, Merrill's with you every step of the way. Go to ml.com/bullish to learn more. Merrill, a Bank of America company. What would you like the power to do? Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer, registered investment advisor, member SIPC.
The Athletic.
Pecco Bagnaia needed a double and got a double from a Japanese Grand Prix weekend that consistently promised to get weird and chaotic, but never really did, at least in the Premier class. I'm Valentin Khorounzhiy, your stand-in host today. Let's say Brock Parks. Let's go with Brock Parks. And with me are Simon Patterson, tired and grumpy, and Megan White. I can't tell, but potentially also tired and grumpy, but probably less so. 11-point swing in the title race. Before we get to that, it's not a great sign when we start the call with some, pre-recording chat. And our chat this time wasn't about anything that happened in the race, but about 20-year-old video games. Not great. Suggests the race wasn't so good, was it?
Did anything happen in the race after the third lap?
Potentially.
I mean, not really. Pedro Acosta fell off again, and then everyone else finished in the order they were in at the end of the second lap because no one can overtake in MotoGP anymore. And it's even worse at a circuit where all you do is brake in a straight line really, really hard, turn the bike and accelerate again. It was kind of the perfect storm of two very nervous title contenders at the front who were faster than everyone else and therefore not willing to do anything stupid, and a track that in the past has maybe suited good racing, but right now with the current spec of MotoGP and the current tyres doesn't. And the end result is that we had something that was so tedious. I can't remember a MotoGP race as like, it's bad whenever Marc Marquez, who is in the race doing 320 kilometers an hour, gets in out of the race and says that was boring. Super boring, actually, to quote him exactly. Yeah. It was just one of those races where we will have forgotten it the minute we turn up at Phillip Island. We will get to Phillip Island, Val, and we will be talking in the group chat about what happened in the last race, and we will have forgotten because it was so boring.
100%. And I don't think it's like the worst one we've ever seen, but it's just the combination of how far into the season we are, the end of a triple header. I think, just the fact that our narrative is completely based on the title rivals, and we've had the two guys who are fighting for the title settle for positions that they basically needed out of the race. We've had them settle for it immediately. Megan, I don't know, are you with us on this one? Is this a bit of a sort of hysterical overreaction at how dull it was, or?
Am I with you in the sense, have I nearly fallen asleep? Yes. Is that for the first time? No. I think the problem, as you said, Val, it's the end of a triple header. People are already bored at this point in a triple header anyway. But when you then add on the fact that race was so lackluster, as Simon said, even Mark was like, that was super boring. It just was really one of those races where you've got up at 5 a.m. UK time, you've watched the race and you've gone, that was just not worth it. So I think, and I'm sure that the fans who did the same agree. It's just all that combination of factors, the tire temperatures, the tire pressures weren't a factor because of the white flag, but tire pressures, tire temperatures, the aerodynamics, the fact that it's so hard to kind of overtake at that circuit, and it was just that awful combination of all the things that make it boring, all in one. End of a triple header, everyone's tired, like ready to go. Yeah, and today was not the one.
I mean, I think something you hit upon there, Megan. I think I'm a bit bitter and frustrated at the minute because I'm very tired because I've done 3 races in a row, and this is like, whoever put this race at the end of the triple header deserves cruel and unusual punishment, because all the nearest hotels to the circuit, Motegi, are an hour's drive. So everyone in the paddock has a 2-hour commute this week, and everyone is just exhausted. So that's why I'm frustrated. But if you're one of the many fans who are like posting on social media about the race, you're probably in Europe, and you probably get up at stupid o'clock in the morning to watch that. And I mean, if you get up to watch MotoGP and you didn't get up to watch Moto2 and Moto3, you'd fall back asleep again, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And you'll make a different decision next year, is the worry.
Exactly.
You'll remember this one, and you'll go, actually, you know what? Sunday morning, I'm okay to wake up at 10 a.m. And that is a problem. It is easy to overstate. It's the whole weekend kind of hinges on these 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And 40 minutes can be bad. That's the reality of racing. Sometimes 40 minutes sometimes the guy who's been the quickest all weekend without any rain coming in hits the front, and that's the end of it. There's also a question of, I think, we're into the territory of, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody sees it fall, does it make a sound? If there's overtakes in the back for 13th and 12th, but the TV direction misses them, do they count? Has action happened?
We have talked longer on this podcast than anyone else in the modern history of MotoGP about how we should devote time to showing the jungle, the battle in the back of the grid, and it genuinely sounded like there was good racing happening this weekend, and the cameras were fixated on the front 3, who are having the world's most boring title fight until it's very briefly exciting for 10 seconds when one of them falls off and then continues to be incredibly boring again. But because of that narrative of boring mistake, the cameras are always on them. So we didn't see anything else of, it sounds like Luca Marini had a great fun race, because he was just like smashing into people and riding, having fun in a very Luca Marini controlled way. I'm not saying that he's, for example, Alex Marquez. There was a big group further back down the grid. I mean, former world champion Fabio Quartararo ran out of fuel crossing the line, and it took 15 minutes for them to find the footage of it.
Yeah.
Come on, just show us a bit more of what's happening. And the thing is, they've demonstrated really well recently that the picture-in-picture technology they have works. And there was a while that it felt like they were listening and they were using it, and it was great. And then we went back to watching 3 bikes riding around 6 seconds apart until one of them falls off. And
it's strange. It's a bit of a vicious circle, because I also, I would be lying if I said I massively cared about who finished 7th or 11th, right? It won't change the season for anybody. It won't change, like Fabio Quartararo could finish 7th, he could finish 17th, and you could argue that it's the same race for him, given what he's already accomplished in MotoGP. But it is, if you never show it to people, then obviously nobody's going to start caring, because it's, it might as well be happening in some other race that nobody follows. It's complicated for me, but I'm also not, at least on a cool-down lap, when you've seen a Bagnaia walk over and Martin follow him home, you can at least switch for that last second battle for 7th, surely. What are you losing? A cool-down lap?
And I think the thing is, as well, is we need to give people reasons to watch. If the battle at the front is not interesting, there needs to be something that is interesting. Otherwise, why am I not turning it off and going to get breakfast, turning it off and going to bed, whatever? Why am I watching a race where nothing's happening at the front and you're not showing me anything that is happening? No, nobody is that interested in who finishes 14th. But at least there's something happening. Yeah. They've had this problem in F1 previously as well, where they've just shown a really boring, a boring shot of the leader when someone further back is having an interesting battle. No, you don't necessarily care what one of the midfield or towards the back of the midfield runners is doing, but it's something to watch that is not just, Pecco leading by 1.2 seconds, Martin is a bit further behind, maybe 4 seconds down the road you got someone else. That is not compelling viewing. even compared to the battle for 13th. So I just think, show something, even if that something is maybe not what might be headline news on another day. Show us something. And the thing with Fabio's, running out of fuel as well, it's the same thing. It's like, we don't need to see Pecco cheering, yes, he's won, well done. Like, if there's something else happening, show us that.
And also, Fabio Quartararo has probably got the most engaged fan base in MotoGP globally.
Yeah.
So maybe Marc Marquez is bigger with the casual fan, but with the hardcore fan, Fabio Quartararo is number one. Especially in Asia, he's huge here. So make the effort, give people what they want. You would think it's not rocket science.
Yeah, and you say Fabio, but I don't think it even needs like a relevant character. You're not going to create characters if you don't see them race, or if all you show is 5 minutes after you found crash footage. And show them in the gravel. But how do they race each other? Like, what do they do? Which of them are, more aggressive? We know by reputation which riders are aggressive and which riders are sort of more timid, passive. But the truth is, if you're a casual watcher, you're having to just trust us. Trust us. We've heard that Johan Zarco and Alex Marquez get their elbows out. We've heard that Franco Morbidelli, okay, he's more on screen recently because he's higher up, but we've heard that he puts on some rough moves. We've heard that, Aleix Espargaro prefers to race more conservatively, or like Maverick Vinales just can't overtake anybody. We've heard all those things. We're having to tell you them because they're not on screen. Anyway, now that we've actually talked about some of the other riders, let's go back to the main event. Let's do, I guess, the same thing that they're doing. Jorge Martin, Pecco Bagnaia, 11-point swing. How do you feel about this one, guys? If you're Bagnaia, is this pretty much like the perfect way this weekend could have gone?
Yeah. Especially after, I think, I've been thinking about this all week, about what we said last week in the podcast about maybe he just doesn't like Mandalika and he's never said it out loud. Yeah. I've not stopped thinking about that. And I think that there's something to that. He just doesn't like that track. He just doesn't go very well there. But he had an okay weekend at it, all things considered. And then he came here to a place where he does like, and look what he did. He just absolutely took the maximum out of it. And he does that. He's very good at doing that. I think that's his fourth 37-point weekend of the season. Like, that's impressive. And it's kind of Pecco in a nutshell. It wins the most ever, matching the most ever in the modern era in a season, I think, alongside 7 DNFs. I mean, he's either really good or really bad. And it's weird that Jorge Martin used to be the guy who was kind of a bit like that. And I think maybe we're realizing that they're both quite like that. But Pecco's a bit better at it and a bit more on it when he's on it. You'd never have thought 12 months ago that we'd be here talking about how the most successful sprint racer of the year is Pecco Bagnaia, but he's chasing Jorge Martin in the championship because he keeps falling off. Because this time last year, it was the exact opposite way around. And I think the reason for that is that they're actually very, very similar.
Do either of you think he was fortunate that the rain stayed away, generally? Do you think the 11-point swing would have been lesser or non-existent if some more actual things happened?
It would have swung less, but he would have still have come out on top, because I think after what we saw in Misano, Martin would have just stuck to Pecco's rear wheel regardless of what Pecco did, and they would have still have finished first and second, or fourth and fifth, or 17th and 18th. So maybe the point swing would have been different because further down the ranking, less points, but I think they would have finished in the same order.
Well, let's look at it from a different perspective, because obviously Bagnaia's weekend was mostly run up front, either let the rider ahead of you crash or just lead from up front and manage the race and get the points that were on offer. And he was, I think, probably in normal conditions, he was probably the quickest. He avoided compromising his Q2, because at the start of Q2, you're watching it and you're like, he's 4 seconds off. He can't seemingly get the tire to temperature or something like that. And it's looking like he's in trouble. And then the rain just doesn't pick up. If it picked up, I think this is a completely different weekend. But it doesn't pick up. There's normal conditions basically from here to there, and there's the 37 points that I think his weekend pace merited. Let's talk Martin though. Martin dug himself a hole right away in Q2, and I heard on the MotoGP broadcast, I heard one of the commentators, either Matt Bird or Lewis Sotheby, suggest that if in that moment of crashing in Q2, you offered Martin fourth in the sprint, second in the Grand Prix, he would sign it. Do you agree? Do you think he would have signed it? because I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I think he hit par after that, and he maybe could have done more.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Actually, you've put me in the spot a bit, Val. I don't know. I think at this point, there is a point where this is kind of, it's the slow erosion of time, where maybe per weekend he's not really thinking about Bagnaia closing down his points lead, but there's going to be a point where he looks back at it and says, oh, he's right there. And I think maybe in the moment, maybe even this evening, he's not too worried about how this weekend went, and he thinks that it's all right. But I think maybe in the once he's home this week and thinking a bit more about it, he might actually be starting to get a bit worried that we're getting close to single digits of a gap now.
I think as well, Martin tends to be very much a thinking in the moment. Like, he was thinking about that race when it rained and he came in. He was just thinking about that race and winning that race. So I do think he might at some point have that moment of, oh, that guy's right there. Like, and I mean, Pecco said that it would be good for them to arrive in Valencia on the same number of points. Now, is that Pecco realizing it's going to take him that long to get to that number of points? Or is he, he's like, oh, it'd be great for the show, but actually, like, I need to save my ass here. So that was an interesting comment, I thought, in terms of the title battle. I think, yes, it would be exciting for it to go down to Valencia, but like... That
is 100% Pecco bullshitting to make a boring day sound better. He wants to arrive in Valencia with a lead of like 400 points.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Because it's Valencia. Anything can happen at that cold, horrible circuit where no one can overtake in November.
Valencia Bash Corner coming early this year, coming at like monthly intervals.
Worst track in the world to end the season at.
I should say, I think none of them would be okay with going into that round level.
Yeah, it's not Pecco unique.
Yeah. We've had, from the Race Members Club on Patreon, our wonderful engaged audience, thank you very much. We had a couple of questions about Martin and Pecco this weekend. Johnny Ross expressed his surprise that given how good Martin's start was in the sprint, that he then seemed to completely just, hit the handbrake. Were the tricky conditions causing him to be too conservative once he was in fourth place? And Martin said that was the case, yeah, basically. So it was as simple as that. He after crashing on some raindrops in Q2, his confidence was sapped a bit. He wasn't feeling good on the front all weekend, so he decided in the sprint discretion was the better part of valor. I think there was more to lose there than to gain. I mean, you lost more points in the sprint relative to Bagnaia than in the Grand Prix, but at the same time, when you're starting 11th, that is going to happen. Those smaller races are less conditioned for you to make up ground, especially with the GP24 being stronger and stronger and stronger later in races compared to many of its opponents. And Matthew Carrier wrote, was that the race both Martin and Pecco needed to have? And what do you think Martin's approach will be going into the last few rounds in terms of risk versus reward? And he wrote, #satellite teams can't win championships. Don't know what that is a reference to. It's just random words.
Thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate you being on board with that. And I will see Matt in Phillip Island because I know he's going. I think Phillip Island is a really weird one, and neither of them want to go there, despite the fact that everyone loves it because it's the greatest circuit on earth. I think both of them are going to go into Phillip Island being a bit concerned that it's this oddball, wild circuit where crazy things happen and anyone can win, and you can be in a group with 400 people fighting for the win in the last lap, and it's just mayhem. We've not really been to Phillip Island in the current generation of MotoGP with the aero and the ride height devices and all of that, and the current tyre and the tyre pressure rules, because last year we kind of did, but last year's race was weird because temperature and weather and whatever. So we've not really been there for like a normal weekend. There's no guarantee it's going to be a normal weekend because the Phillip Island weather forecast for this week is already pretty grim. No, exactly. But I think they're going to be dreading that they're going to end up in a weird battle with people doing really stupid lungy moves to try and win. You might see like not a wet race result, but like I wouldn't be surprised if we walk away from Phillip Island with like a Marquez Acosta Bastianini championship or a podium fight, and then the two of them, Martin and Bagnaia, like 6th and 7th, because they've kind of said this is not for me.
I think your logic right now is the exact same logic that Martin used to talk himself out of a Phillip Island win last season. He put on the soft because he did not want to run in the pack. So he was like, I'll clear out and I'll manage my own race. And it bit him in the end, but
that did not end
you
well.
can see there is logical apprehension to a Phillip Island race.
And Marc Marquez is always just Marc Marquez.
Yeah.
Just that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, this weekend, another not fantastic qualifying problem, and then he gets 2 podiums. So next weekend, if he can not have any problems in qualifying, I'm sure he says this every weekend. I don't think I'm unique in saying that. He's there as well. So there's Pecco and Jorge need to definitely watch out for him. Never ignore Marc Marquez.
Here's a prediction. I'm going to make a bold prediction, a rash prediction. A title contender. And I'm going to make the top 4, those top 4 in the championship. One of them's not going to make Q2 because of a random Larry lap from Johan Zarco at the end of Friday. So one of them is going to get booted because someone that no one expects to be fast is going to be fast, like a Honda or a Yamaha or something crazy like that. Because Phillip Island, that's the sort of great thing that happens there.
Megan, you've reminded me of a point that is worth raising, but because it's 24 hours on, I feel like I've almost forgotten about. In the sprint, we had Bagnaia roll off quite a bit at the very end, just managing the gap to the guys behind him and trying to make sure that no raindrop or anything catches him out. And there was some conversation about whether teammate Nea Bastianini took it easy on him, whether Bastianini was more running rear gunner and protecting him from the threat of Marc Marquez instead of attacking him. What did you two feel about that one, about the final lap in the sprint? And is there a problem for Martin where he doesn't... We've talked about this already, but is there a tangible issue for Martin where he doesn't have the allies he needs to have?
No, not at all. I think that Enea was left deeply frustrated on Sunday by basically the way that Brad Binder passed him and then his own ability to overtake anyone else without being super Larry. Yeah. And I think it's kind of the Mazzano issue writ large, where you have to be even Larrier at this track, and we know that he's prepared to be super Larry, but not quite that risky. So I think that's part of it, that he couldn't do anything. And then, honestly, I think the other part of it is he ended up in a sandwich behind the hardest rider in MotoGP to pass while being hunted down by Marc Marquez. You're riding defensively against someone that's not going to leave you much room to get past. And the end result is that at the end of the race, there was nothing he could do. There was maybe an opportunity that he could have done something earlier in the race, but then he got into a battle with Marc that lost him time. He had too much work to do to close it down. So no, I don't think there was anything more he could have done in the circumstance that he put himself in. He could have tried and changed his circumstance, but he didn't. So he finished second.
There is a whole conversation, I think, to be had about those Ducati dynamics, and we've had it before, and I suspect we will have it again. But to those who specifically think Bastianini took it easy on Bagnaia in the final lap of the sprint, just rewatch that lap and try to pinpoint a moment where an overtake could have taken place. I mean, they close in the second half of the lap. There's nothing there. There's no moment. The only thing he could have done is, well, nothing. Crash into him for fun, which obviously doesn't benefit anybody. There's no reason to do.
You saw that play when your QB dropped back, looked off the safety, and threw a dime deep for the go-ahead touchdown. That's not just haul-worthy, that's wall-worthy, and you can own a piece of it when you shop the unrivaled selection of trading cards and memorabilia on eBay, the home of collectibles since 1995. Huddle up with 132 million users around the world to find that rookie patch auto you can't find anywhere else. Premium trading card singles, live card breaks, unique game-used memorabilia, all the epic finds you need are right here on eBay. Plus, with eBay Authenticity Guarantee for trading cards, you know that what you buy is the real deal. Collect with confidence by downloading the eBay app on the App Store or by going straight to ebay.com/theathletic. That's right, your collecting journey kicks off right here, right now at ebay.com/theathletic. Come through and collect with us today.
This episode is supported by Merrill. With a dedicated Merrill advisor, you get a personalized plan for your financial goals. And when plans change, Merrill's with you every step of the way. Go to ml.com/bullish to learn more. Merrill, a Bank of America company. What would you like the power to do? Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer. Registered investment advisor. Member SIPC.
The Race F1 podcast is brought to you by Merrill. It's no secret that finances can get complicated. Like me, I'm sure many of you listening will have financial goals. Perhaps it's even saving up for that trip to a Grand Prix far afield. Whatever your goals are, from starting a business to saving for kids' college to getting more stamps in your passport, you want a straightforward path there. But life tends to have other plans, and things get in your way. Merrill understands that. That's why with a dedicated Merrill advisor, you get a personalised plan that can help keep your money in sync with your life. So with the bull at your back, no matter what life brings, you get a clear path forward. Go to ml.com/bullish to learn more. Merrill, a Bank of America company. What would you like the power to do? Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer, registered investment advisor, member SIPC.
Jasper Pendlebury from the Members Club asks, as a KTM fan, what happened to Acosta and when will this suffering end? Valencia last year, this, other times, I'm sure I've repressed. Why do the pure mobility... Good job saying pure mobility, bravo. Why do the pure mobility bikes get magnetically attached to the gravel whenever they end up near the front? Well, let's talk about Acosta this weekend specifically, because obviously started out so well, looked super promising, and then fell apart terribly in both the sprint and the Grand Prix. How concerned are you?
Pedro Acosta's a rookie, and he's still doing rookie things, and I think we've kind of expected him to stop doing rookie things because he's an amazing rookie, but he is still a rookie. And like, his career trajectory is basically that of every other rookie in MotoGP, except that instead of crashing out of 10th, he's crashing out of 1st because he's really, really, really talented. I was talking to actually come up the paddock super late last night with Hervé Poncharal, and we were talking about like Zarco's first race for him on the Tech 3 Yamaha, Qatar, where he led the race in Qatar and threw it away. And it's a rookie thing. Rookies crash, and I think there's maybe, I don't want to say there's too much pressure on Pedro because he handles it super well, but I think people are expecting too much of him, is a better way of putting it. He's fine with what he's done this year. The team are largely fine with what he's done this year. And to be perfectly honest, I'm pretty sure the pure mobility group would rather that one of their bikes was crashing out of the lead than finishing 7th. Yeah. Or in the case of Jack Miller, crashing out of like P17 on regular occurrence. Though we had a quite good weekend.
Yeah, he finished both races.
So I'm not bashing I know. I'm not bashing him too much this weekend. I just mean across the grand scheme of things, you know. I think the fact that the rookie is still battling to be their top rider in the championship kind of justifies everything he's done this weekend, even if he should have had, like an extra 20 points over Brad Binder in that battle on Sunday evening.
I feel like this has come up several times where people are like, oh, he's having it's a terrible time. Oh, no, Pedro, blah, blah, blah. But like, Pedro has had a great year. Pedro has been really, really impressive. He has shown pace. Yes, he's had his moments where he's crashed, but like Simon said, if he was crashing out of 16th, nobody would notice. Like, the fact that we are noticing him, we are talking about him because he is at the front, that's great. Yes, he has had a few moments where he's crashed and he's kind of thrown it away, but like, it's a learning curve. Not everyone's going to win the title in their first year. Like, he's on a KTM. He's doing a really good job. The fact that he was in the position to be at the front in the first place, that's in itself a really big achievement. So I think that while, yes, it is a shame that he was in that position twice this weekend, the fact that he was there in the first place is good in itself.
And also, worth noting, he is crashing on his own. He's not like crashing in turn 1 and taking 3 people with him like Jack Miller did do last weekend. He's not, you know what I mean? But he's not Larry or dangerous. He's just making mistakes. It's not like he's overriding. It's not like he's just got stuff still to learn. But he's not being stupid and mad and crazy and reckless.
And running into the back of Hondas, and yeah, he didn't do that. So
no, exactly. Or wiping out the championship leader after making a mistake and running wide. Yeah. This is really the Bash Alex Marquez podcast, isn't it?
We can bash whoever on this podcast.
Yeah,
I did not sign up for this. This is not accurate. I mean, I'm slightly in two minds because there were parts of the weekend where, sort of listening to Acosta talk about those errors, I was like, I'd like you to be at least a little bit more beaten up about them than you are. Just ever so slightly more, because the KTM gets a chance for a result like like once every 3 months, right? And there were 2 good chances this weekend, and both of them ended up in the gravel trap. But I also have to then immediately acknowledge he was the only guy doing it. Okay, so Binder had a mechanical on Saturday, had some sort of situation where his power just cut out, something electronic. He might have had an okay race, but on Sunday his pace wasn't really there. I think we're in a situation now where Acosta just is the ceiling is just higher reliably session after session. So I can only be so irritated. I can only be so annoyed. But you did, Simon, I liked you bringing up Zarco, because I also remember that, Qatar race. And the thing about the Zarco is that first win with Tech 3 Yamaha never came.
No?
Never won with Tech 3 Yamaha. Went to KTM, didn't come anywhere close to anything there. It took until Pramac Ducati last year to win.
Living in 2025.
But we don't, you can never be sure of anything. But we don't have that concern with Acosta, right? There's none of us are sitting here being like, "Ooh, this could have been his one chance to win, and now he's going to have to wait 7 years."
Look, if this kid was in a Ducati this year, even if he was in a GP23, we wouldn't be talking about whether or not he was going to win a race this season. He'd have done it by now.
Obviously, Pedro has DNF'd from 4 Grand Prix this season, but you can't forget Pecco has DNF'd from 3, so he's a rookie, but, it's not that bad. We talk about, or what happened, when will the suffering end? He's DNF'd from 1 Grand Prix more than the reigning 2-time champion.
You said that you'd like him to be a bit more concerned about this. He does not have that ability. He is a bull. He does not have the ability to say, maybe I'm at fault here, which certain racers don't. They are just, nope, power on, we will keep doing it, and we will be better every time, and then one day we're going to do it, and then we're going to do it again and again and again and again, and you're an 8 times world champion. That is the trait he shares the most with Marquez, is that they're very bullish about their approach to racing, more than anyone else, really, I think.
There's a new KTM chassis that Acosta seems to be taking massive profit from as of late, because there was that period in the season where the level sort of plateaued relative to Binder in particular, and now this weekend it looked pretty one-sided, even though Binder's had ultimately a fine weekend. But to Jasper again, Jasper asked, when will this suffering end? And it's true that KTM is letting good results slip through the grass, but even with the KTM development being uncertain, obviously KTM's just changed team managers, changed certain other things, which reflects a dissatisfaction with the state of the project, with how far along they are on their MotoGP roadmap. But because they have Pedro, the future is as bright as ever. This is the first time that KTM can be, I think, 100% sure that they have the guy who they need to win the title. Doesn't mean he will, doesn't mean that other components don't need to be in place, but they know they have the guy.
This is no, I'm not saying this to demean Pecco Bagnaia, but the KTM situation is not Ducati, where Bagnaia needs a very, very good motorbike to do what he's doing right now. This is Honda in 2016, where a good enough bike will do because of the talent on it. And yeah, that's going to take a little while. It's not going to happen instantly. He's still got a bit of learning to do. And this is not the championship that Marc Marquez came into 10 years ago as a rookie. So things are very different for Pedro and the bigger picture. But whenever he's doing what he's doing right now on a bike that we know is at a massive disadvantage to Ducati, whenever the bike is only at a slight disadvantage to Ducati, which I think it will get to eventually, because I keep saying this, I think that this year will be the peak of the Ducati dominance of modern MotoGP. Once it starts to go the other direction, he's going to start to be more and more at the front. And then there'll be less mistakes whenever the bike is a bit better and he has more experience. And the time will come, and it's not that far away, where he will have a bike that's good enough to do, maybe not to win titles, but to do cool things on. To entertain us on.
Simon, you said earlier this season that this was like maybe your favorite rookie season, or potentially the best rookie season on memory, even including, let's say, Mark 2013, or my personal sort of favorite, Fabio 2019, which I think is still a ridiculous campaign, genuinely phenomenal. Are you still in that situation?
Yeah. I mean, there's an argument to be made for both of those, obviously. One of the things that kind of detracts from Fabio's situation for me, is they did a good second half of the season, but he wasn't even top Yamaha in the championship at the end. That still went to Vinales. Yeah. I think that Acosta is going to fight until the end to be top KTM. He regularly outclasses the other KTMs, like this weekend, even though he didn't finish. And I think that for me, there is more consistency. There is more just raw talent than Fabio, and that's taken nothing away from Fabio, who I think is super talented. But Acosta is more talented for current MotoGP, if that makes sense. I think what he brings to MotoGP suits the bikes we have right now, and I think he's doing good things. Marquez's season came at a very different time. The guy inherited one of the greatest racing motorbikes ever built, that had been developed into just this incredible thing by Casey Stoner, and that he turned up on the factory team and just cleaned off. Not the same time, not the same era. And I think if Acosta had come into MotoGP on a GP24, then we could have and wasn't winning championships, then we can have a conversation about comparing him to Mark. But the fact that he's in the KTM means that, for me, no one else has done anything that's impressive.
Yeah, what Simon said, everything that Simon said, I don't mean to sound like I'm just echoing Simon, but yeah, I completely agree. I think there's so many different factors that play into it, with Mark with the bike, with, Fabio not being the top Yamaha in his rookie season. I absolutely think that what Pedro is doing is amazing. I think his approach is amazing. As you said, he's very I'm just going to keep at it. He's so determined. He's so he knows what he needs to do, and he's very clear about it. And I think that his whole ethos, his whole attitude is great. And I think, like Simon said, what he's doing now on that bike, which is at such a disadvantage, if he was on the GP24, then we'd be having probably a different conversation.
I'd say, if anything, it's weirdly kind of good for KTM that he didn't sweep this weekend or anything, because I think KTM needs credit in the bank with him. There will come a moment where Acosta will just be okay, I've been in here long enough, it is time for me to win the championship. And the question at that point will be, is the RC16, it will be the RC16 still, is it good enough to do that? And I think that moment's coming real soon. So their development needs to catch up to it real soon.
They're lucky they've got him in a 2-year contract. Because it'll run to the end of that 2-year contract, and then we'll see where he lands. But they've got him for 2 more years, and then they should be quite grateful for that.
This episode is supported by Merrill. With a dedicated Merrill advisor, you get a personalized plan for your financial goals. And when plans change, Merrill's with you every step of the way. Go to ml.com/bullish to learn more. Merrill, a Bank of America company. What would you like the power to do? Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer. Registered investment advisor. Member SIPC.
The Acura ZDX is more than just 100% electric. It's 100% Acura energy. With nearly 500 horsepower and an impressive range rating, the ZDX Type S delivers 100% excitement and brings unprecedented performance to the Type S family. And it's 100% loaded with innovative features like an 18-speaker Bang & Olufsen premium sound system, available hands-free cruise, and Google built-in. Test drive the Acura ZDX and unlock electrified performance today.
This episode is supported by Merrill. With a dedicated Merrill advisor, you get a personalized plan for your financial goals. And when plans change, Merrill's with you every step of the way. Go to ml.com/bullish to learn more. Merrill, a Bank of America company. What would you like the power to do? Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer. Registered investment advisor. Member SIPC.
Handful of more questions from the members club, 2 of them coming from Angelina. And this first one's kind of a doozy, will take us quite a bit of time to go over. What's this about the GP23 being downgraded? It did not seem like Mark was any further off the GP24s than usually. Simon, you've been chasing this all weekend through people kind of talking about it, but not really, for strange clandestine reasons.
People have wanted to give me some of the story to get it out there, but didn't want to give me too much of it, so it came back to them. So it took a bit of It took a bit of digging and a bit of putting it all together, and then asking well-chosen questions to a couple of riders who always say more than they should. So thank you, Marc Marquez in particular, for being so untouchable by Ducati that you can kind of say whatever you want and not get too much trouble. Ducati brought something around the time of the summer break, and it initially wasn't particularly well loved by the riders, but as they got to use it, it turned into something that they really enjoyed. And it was something that altered engine characteristics to the extent that it gave them a little bit more rear traction, got a little bit more out of that new Michelin rear tire that hasn't worked well with their bike this year. Everyone loved it. Everyone eventually adopted it. All the GP23s have got closer to the GP24s over the course of the last month, 6 weeks, as they've got used to it. Then Marc Marquez's bike exploded last weekend rather dramatically in Mandalika. We got to Motegi this weekend, and the new part was gone from the bike and will not be returning, from what I understand. So that was kind of what I got from sources. We did some digging. We're not entirely sure yet, obviously, of what happened. But it seems like the part that they brought was a new flywheel. Now, Ducati did this really clever thing a few years ago where normally your flywheel, which is basically a big spinny piece of heavy metal that you use to adjust the speed at which the crank rotates and to smooth out the speed at which the crank rotates, normally it's inside the engine. Ducati did a really clever thing a few years ago where they modified their engine so that it's outside the engine, so you can seal your MotoGP homologated engine, but you can still change your flywheel, which means you can kind of alter it during the season to change engine characteristics. You might remember that basically getting the then internal flywheel wrong and going the wrong weight on it basically destroyed Suzuki's entire season in 2017.
17, Iannone season.
Yeah. Because the engine didn't work all season because they got this internal inertia issue wrong. So Ducati were really clever, moved it externally. I think KTM do it now as well. They brought a new one that was different for the middle of the season, but what it was doing was it's lighter. It doesn't spin as much. The rear wheel can then spin more, and the rear wheel was bouncing a little bit. It was over revving, and it caused Marc Marquez's engine to blow up by doing irreparable damage. It probably caused snapped a piston or something, which has then come out through the side of the bike, punctured a fuel line or an oil line, which has caught fire and then caused that fire that we saw. So that all fits. It all makes sense, even though no one will yet say what it exactly happened. The story is pretty much confirmed by people within Ducati who've said, yeah, okay, well played, you got that right. Essentially all the GP23s that were suddenly looking really good now go into the last 5 rounds if you count this one, at a mechanical disadvantage again, and they're not very happy about it, but also they know that the alternative is bikes exploding underneath them, so they're not too upset about it either.
I feel slightly guilty for calling 2017 the Iannone season, the Andrea Iannone season for Suzuki, because it feels like
that's what they call it, I bet you.
Yeah, but I don't think that's entirely fair to Andrea Iannone, even though he's never been seen as some sort of massively wonderful development mind. But ultimately, I don't think it's great to pin the entire blame on a development misstep on just one spearhead rider. Now, obviously, congratulations, Iannone, for first World Superbike win, not that long ago, quite recently. Also, congratulations, Danilo Petrucci, for like a whole bunch of them, I think. The thing is, I'm slightly with Angelina here. Did it not seem that Marc was any further off today? Okay, Marc's very good at Motegi, so that will be part of it. But I think you've heard, Simon, from sources that this is substantial. The way riders talk about it is substantial. Marco Bezzecchi said that it was the one thing sort of negating a little bit the problem he's particularly had all season, but also the other GP23s, which is the new rear tire pushing the front, can't make the corners, can't turn in. But I've not really seen that transformation. Like, they were okay. Bezzecchi was competitive at Misano, but it's Misano. He can do Misano with his eyes closed on a push bike. Like, it's not been a revolution, I think, right?
It's not. It's not been massive, but it's been better. It's got them a little bit closer to where they need to be. He was never going to fix everything. because it sounds like the issue is much more fundamental, and there's a reason that all the guys who are jumping on a GP24 next year are absolutely delighted that Michelin's not bringing a new front tyre, because their bike's not built for it. But it just helped them get a little bit closer to where we thought they should have been. You think if they got this at the start of the season, especially in those early races where we always expect the GP23 to be better, it would have been better, much better than it was. But c'est la vie.
Megan, are you annoyed by the idea of a GP23 downgrade when it already kind of feels a bit downgraded-ish all this season?
Yeah, I understand that if this magical part, this magical flywheel mystery, whatever, if that is causing problems that make bikes explode, let's not have exploding bikes. This isn't some sort of like a special Mario Kart round where we have an exploding bike every week. But it does seem a shame that if this part was helping it, especially Bezzecchi, Digia, if it was helping him that much, to then have that step backwards does feel, it does feel a shame. I know that obviously Bezzecchi's leaving at the end of the year, so for him it's like, well, is what it is, I guess, for in that respect, not in his career's respect. But it does feel a shame for them to have taken a step forward and then taken half or 3/4 of a step back, maybe 1 and a bit steps. I guess it remains to be seen. So yeah, I think ultimately if it was going to be a danger to have it on the bike still, then I see why they wouldn't. But if it was just kind of, I guess you have to weigh up that risk, don't you? Is it worth keeping it on and risk fires or not? But I mean, as you said, Mark seemed to do a pretty good job this weekend. So, but that's Mark.
It is Motegi, so we don't know 100%. So there is a non-zero chance that I guess Mark with the right bike at Motegi is just gone at turn 1, not to be sseen for the rest of the race. I think obviously the Honda was famously strong there, but also Mark himself reliably delivered the goods. I want to run down that list of GP23 riders again. Obviously, Mark's in the mix, but basically out of the title race now. Bezzecchi's going to Aprilia. Digian Antonio, I would argue, should not be racing right now and should be getting his shoulder repaired, but he and his doctors will know better what exactly is going on there. But the fact competitive reasons keep coming up for why he's still staying, this season's done. So if there's any competitive consideration, go. This season's over. There's nothing to hunt there. You're going to have a GP25 next season. You could win the title, in theory. Go now. Go have it repaired. Go have a surgical Cyberpunk shoulder installed or whatever it is that the doctors do.
Do you notice the really weird thing? You've just described Fabio Di Giannantonio as likely as Jorge Martin to win the title next year, essentially. And I don't think you're wrong.
Kind of.
But that's the weird thing, because I think of Jorge Martin, who likes crashing and makes weird mistakes, can fight for a MotoGP title. And Marco Bezzecchi could do it last year. DJ can absolutely fight for a title. The current DJ, the one that we've seen in flashes this year, can absolutely do it. The one from the end of last season could do it. Yeah, I'm down for that. I'd like a DJ title tilt. That would be quite entertaining.
It's actually one of those things that when someone first says that, you go, and then actually when you think about it, that's not the wildest prediction anyone's going to make about next year.
I mean, it's wild. It was deliberately wild and provocative, but at the very least, there's a lot more to hunt there than there is this season.
It's less wild than saying Pedro Acosta is going to fight for the title next year in a KTM.
I don't know about that. That's a future podcast. Let's not burn all of our great material right now. Another GP23 note: Alex Marquez going through it recently. You could say had a big collision with Joan Mir on the opening lap, was assessed a long lap penalty. This is going to be my favorite part of the podcast every time I do it, because I feel great about it. I feel massively contrarian. It's going to be the FIM Stewards Panel Defense Corner. Joan Mir unloaded a whole rant at Freddie Spencer's panel about how they weren't taking action, about how Alex Marquez wasn't penalized. All they actually did was wait post-race, call him in for a hearing, give him a long lap, which is what we've wanted him to do. When the riders are out of the race, we'd quite like him to listen to the riders. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I thought that was fine. It seemed pretty good to me. Long lap may be a bit nice given the speed of the accident and the fact one of the riders went head first into the barrier, but the process seemed okay.
Do you know what my issue with it was? It's that Alex Marquez had the opportunity to go and defend himself, Whereas if he'd not fallen off but just knocked Joan Mir off, he wouldn't have had the opportunity, and then that's double standards. Yeah. I think that's my issue with it, is that you have to do for one what you do for all. Yeah. And I would rather they'd adjudicated it during the race. Let's be honest, they had nothing else to do. I would rather they'd adjudicated it there to, just to be fair.
Ding, 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 consistency corner.
Yeah,
like... As Simon says,
they couldn't, like, they could listen to him. They had the privilege. Whereas in race, I mean, that's just the motorsport problem. I don't think that's a Freddie Spencer problem necessarily. I mean, that's just how, sometimes in racing you look at whether you can listen to the parties involved or not, and you do it when you can at no loss. Which, I mean, the long lap is coming at Phillip Island anyway, so there's time. I don't know. I thought it was fine. It was much better handling of it than the Wi-Fi problem that got Mark's lap deleted 5 minutes late in qualifying. Anyway, another question again from Angelina. What is Yamaha doing? Why do they keep running out of fuel? And I'll take this one. Angelina, fuel's really expensive. So when you can underfuel your bike, you gotta do it. You gotta save.
And obviously they're sponsored by Eneos, and we're in Japan where there's no Eneos fuel stations at all to get any from. So.
What's the actual reason, Simon?
They're trying to... Well, part of the reason is that they're trying to be... They're trying to eke it out to the end because it's racing and it's all about fine margins. The other part of the problem is that their bike's a spinny monster, and whenever the tyre is spinning and the wheel's spinning, it's burning more fuel than it would if it was actually driving it forward. Because if you think about it, essentially their rear wheel is travelling more than the length of the race because it's spinning and it's not going anywhere. So as a result, they're burning more fuel than they calculate that they need for the race. And Fabio has the problem much more than Rins, so he keeps running out of fuel. It is worth noting that everyone is running really tight in fuel, and this is a really hungry fuel track. So that they're kind of unlucky that it happened in Misano and then it happened 2 races later here, because it looks really bad, but it's part of the nature of here. I mean, Aleix Espargaro also ran out of fuel in Sunday's race. It's just that his bike turned into limp mode and got him across the line just so it didn't look as bad. But he spent probably longer riding slowly than Fabio did. Fabio just rode really slowly for one corner.
Yeah. It didn't cost them that much in the end. It's not going to change their life, and we'll get more into the non-Ducati manufacturers in the midweek. But let's just say not one of Yamaha's finest weekend. I'm not gloating about that. Again, let's not make this a stereotype where like Val's rooting against Yamaha every weekend. That's not true. I'm not a hater. I'm a lover. Don't know why I said that. Cut that out, Johnny. Anyway, Ian Carlin asked, "Can you speak a bit about the Moto2 riders putting their hands up to request a red flag? Is there a certain amount that would force a red flag, or is it at race control's discretion?" Now, Rain hit the Moto2 race early on, got it red flagged, and then a bunch of riders on slicks won it. It's pretty cool.
I don't know how it works here, because I don't know how most things with race control work here, because they don't speak to us and don't tell us anything. Why I'm once again going to say that British Superbikes are better at some things than MotoGP. And the way that BSB used to do it was, if it looked wet, race director Stuart Higgs goes to class veterans, riders that he trusts, at the start of the race, and says, if it rains, put your hand in the air. And they're the designated rain guys, and he watches out for them during the race. I think what we saw on Sunday was a bit more ad hoc, but I mean, it was clear as day. And a few of the Moto2 guys, more experienced Moto2 guys, are going to be remembering that disaster in Portimao a few years ago, where they didn't red flag it and basically the top 15 in the race crashed all at once. Yeah. They would have been remembering that. They would have been aware of that. So I think people very quickly sort of as a group said, let's do this. Let's stop this, because it's going to end badly.
Matthew Carrier again asks, "Please tell me Ayagura made the slick call on smell and smell alone. I presume Motegi rain smells different to Misano rain. Not sure how different." Simon, can you talk about that and about your observation on Agura in the...
Ayagura did not make the call. I will say that. He explained to us afterwards that it doesn't even sound fair to call his crew chief Norman Rank a veteran, because Norman is a paddock legend, and Norman made the call. And everyone was like, what the hell did you do that for? Why did you not do what all the other title contenders are doing and go with wets? The minute that everyone heard that Norman made the call and not Agura, they were like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. And funnily enough, the other two guys in the podium, race winner Manu Gonzalez and Philip Salak, said in the press conference afterwards that they actually came through the tunnel onto the start-finish straight, or close to the start-finish straight at the end of that siding lap. And they saw that Agura was staying out on the slicks, and they thought, follow the local. And it worked. And Manu was kind of a little bit apologetic about, I'm really sorry I stole your race win at your home race. But I just did what you did and it worked. Agura, for his part, was really upset afterwards that he didn't win at home, and obviously had absolutely no consideration of the title battle whatsoever. Based on his comments after the race, he wanted to win his home race. And I think maybe there might have been an element to doing a Larry prediction or a Larry move because of that.
Title battle's basically over at this point. Agura has 60 points in hand over his rivals, 100 points left. It was a Moto2 championship nobody seemingly wanted to win, and now suddenly Agura has just broken everybody's resistance with a run of phenomenal form. Genuinely, he's been amazing. He's been very, very good. Today's a bit more randomness, but I think on merit of performances this season. Megan, looking back at the early season debates over Trackhouse Aprilia and whether it should have been Agura or Joe Roberts or, let's say, Jack Miller, how do you feel about that in hindsight? How do you feel about Agura's form?
I think that it's absolutely the right decision. I think, I just think for Trackhouse, take a gamble, do something fun. Nobody's doing anything fun. Do something fun. Here for the vibes. But no, I think absolutely, Agura was a good decision. They made that good decision then. It's hard because they have to make these choices so early. We've seen the same with Aldegay. You have to make that choice so early that then it's a gamble. Obviously, Agura has done an amazing job and he looks like he's going to wrap it up quite soon. So yeah, great move from Trackhouse there. I think in terms of, obviously the other choices that they had, Roberts, could also have gone the same way, but ultimately they chose their guy. They gambled right. So yeah, good for them.
I mean, ultimately, a run of a few races is no more or less valuable than any other run of few races, I guess, only in terms of recency. But Davide Brivio picked his guy, and Davide Brivio's got an all right record at telling who the good ones are. And I think we were pretty pro Agura when that came out, so we can run a little bit of a victory lap here, but none of it matters in the end until he gets on the MotoGP bike and he's either good or not good.
Yeah, I think that Trackhouse have hit upon someone who he's not going to be the media darling that they maybe wanted and would have got with Jack Miller, but he's going to be a really solid rider. I hope that they stick with him and give him a bit of time. I hope that Aprilia stick with him and give him a bit of time and develop him into something. But there's a ton of potential with this kid, and he's a robot. He's so talented at just that kind of laser focus. The whole thing about Pedro Acosta being a sponge, I think they're going to discover that there's a bit of that with Agura as well. Now that he seems, especially now that with hindsight, there was loads of talk about him going to MotoGP to replace Nakagami 2 years ago. He refused to do it because the Honda was the worst motorcycle in the world. He wasn't wrong. He needed a bit more time in MotoGP to polish himself, or in Moto2 to polish himself, because that was the year of the weird title fight where him and Augusto Fernandez fell off until no one won the championship.
Terrible. Shocking.
Yeah, exactly. It was just the worst. Yeah. So he needed that time. This is the right time for him to go into MotoGP. Back then wasn't. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Davide Brivio in particular can do with the kid.
Feels like he's been around forever, but if you compare him to the MotoGP grid right now, there's only one guy younger. It's Pedro Acosta. Everybody else is older in Agura. He is younger than his Grand Prix racing career feels. So he's just he's a very young product of the Asian Cup. So he's been in this paddock for a very long time because of that. Same as Ayumi Sasaki.
I think having that maturity to say 2 years ago, I don't think I'm ready, that in itself speaks volumes about the sort of person he is, the way that he looks at his career. A lot of people might have just taken that opportunity and it not gone well, and you end up somewhere, you do 1 year in MotoGP and you end up somewhere else. But actually he went, no, do you know what? I'm not going to rush this, and it's paid off. And that, now he's not got to ride the Honda, which is not having a great time still. unfortunately.
It's a question of, because, no rider can be certain of a MotoGP promotion, unlike for like a select super few. And even then, injuries happen, stuff like that happens. We talk often about, remember like Danny Kent's offer for Pramac Ducati that he didn't take to go into MotoGP, and he never got a MotoGP chance, never got particularly close in the end. But in Ogura's case, he backed himself to be good enough to get a better bike than that. He's got it. He's done it. So that part of it's really, really cool, I think, for him and Trackhouse Aprilia. Less cool for Honda, but what can you do? There's got to be a loser in this business. That'll be it from us this week. Next week, we're gathering for... Yes, Simon?
I have one other small piece of business before we finish, and I'm suddenly talking very quietly because I'll post a photo on Twitter, have a look, and it'll explain this. While we've been recording the podcast, someone has just got in touch to say that I am completely right. The issue with the Ducati that we talked about is the flywheel that they've changed. But Davide Tardozzi is sitting literally right there. so hence the quiet.
Want to bring him in for an impromptu interrogation? All right. Well,
so that's yeah.
Let's secretively wrap it up. Let's secretively wrap up this edition of the Race MotoGP podcast. But yeah, that's it from us this week. Next weekend, the non-Ducati manufacturers. See you then.
The Athletic.
You know that feeling, the rush of holding a piece of sports history in your hand, how it connects us to our past and present like nothing else can. Catch the thrill when you shop the unrivaled selection at eBay, the home of collectibles since 1995. Premium trading card singles, live card breaks, unique game-used memorabilia. Collect with confidence by downloading the eBay app on the App Store or by going to ebay.com/theathletic. That's ebay.com/theathletic. Start building your collection today. As you've probably heard by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code THEATHLETIC, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code THEATHLETIC. Make your first deposit of at least $10. Place your first bet on any game and claim your voucher for a 1-year subscription to The Athletic. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager.